You lift the lid on a hot afternoon, and the smell reaches you before your hand has cleared the rim. Most people step back without deciding to. There is no shame in that reaction, because it is older than language and stronger than willpower, and no amount of scrubbing has ever kept it away for long. What rises out of that bin in summer is not dirt. It is not proof that you failed to clean. The truth is stranger and far more useful. That odor is a chemical event already underway that your nose was built across millions of years to detect and to flee. A spray will not stop it. Scented bags cannot reach it. Before the method, and before the single dollar that quietly ends this, you need to understand what you have actually been breathing in each time that lid comes up, because the reason the smell always returns within hours is the one part the label will never print. Consider what is happening a few centimeters below the rim. When food scraps break down in warmth, bacteria feed on them and release a family of compounds called amines. Two of them carry most of the weight, and their names fit the situation almost too well. The first is putrescine. The second is cadaverine. They are the molecules of rot itself, the same chemistry that signals decay anywhere in nature, and your body reads them at concentrations so small they barely register as measurable. That sharp, sweetish, gut-turning note is not vague filth. It is a precise chemical telegram from the bacteria dividing in your trash right now. Your ancestors, who flinched at exactly that scent and backed away from spoiled meat, tended to live longer and leave more descendants, which means the disgust you feel is not weakness, it is inheritance doing its job. Alongside those amines, the same breakdown throws off volatile fatty acids, the sour edge layered under the rot, and that second detail matters more than it looks, so keep it in mind because it returns later. Now bring heat into the picture, because heat is the accelerant that changes everything. Warmth multiplies bacterial activity dramatically. The same scraps that would sit quietly in December turn into an odor factory in August. Bacteria divide faster, consume faster, and pump out putrescine and cadaverine faster, which is the entire reason the can behaves for most of the year and then betrays you the moment the temperature climbs. Leave a single tray wrapper from raw chicken in a closed bin through one warm weekend, and the difference is not gradual. It is a wall of smell waiting behind the lid by Monday. Here is what most people get wrong about the response. The instinct is to cover the smell, so the shelves of every store offer sprays, gels, plug-ins, and perfume bags, and all of them share one quiet flaw. They sit on top of the odor. They add fragrance molecules into the air without removing a single molecule of rot underneath. You would not throw a cloth over a grease fire and call the fire handled, yet coating the kitchen in scent while the decay continues became the standard in almost every home. Masking is not removing. The smell returns within hours because nothing was ever neutralized, only buried, and the heat keeps the sauce running the entire time. There is a second belief worth correcting before going further, the faith that a tightly sealed lid is the answer. A sealed lid does not stop decay. It traps heat and moisture against the scraps, which speeds the bacteria along, and then it hands you the whole accumulated cloud in one breath the moment the lid lifts. Containment is not prevention. The seal only delays the reveal and concentrates it. This is where an older set of answers becomes worth your attention. Japanese households spent centuries working inside conditions that punish any mistake with odor. Picture the setting as a character in its own right. Small, dense homes with little storage, kitchens measured in single steps, long, humid summers that hang heavy for months and accelerate every kind of decay. Out of that pressure came a culture that treated raw kitchen waste, namagomi, as something to manage with care rather than ignore until it announced itself. In countless Japanese kitchens, the wet waste goes first into a small mesh basket set in the corner of the sink, the sankaku corner, where it drains continuously instead of stewing in its own liquid. And that single habit strips away much of the moisture decay depends on before the waste ever reaches a bin. Underneath all of it ran a deeper principle, motteinai, a quiet refusal to waste, paired with a habit of maintaining rather than replacing. The methods were never about perfume. They were about chemistry, even when the people using them had no idea they were performing chemistry. 3 levers sit beneath everything that follows. Neutralize the odor compounds, absorb them out of the air, stop the decay before it can begin. Fix the molecule, not the air. Before the deepest part of this, the prevention layer that the branded products quietly hope you never learn, it is worth saying plainly that following along here is how you keep the methods that actually work within reach. So, subscribing is simply how you avoid losing the next reveal. Now to the dollar. The simplest tool is already in most kitchens and costs about $1 a box. Baking soda, known in chemistry as sodium bicarbonate, is mildly alkaline. Recall those volatile fatty acids layered under the rot. An alkaline powder works directly against acidic compounds through reaction rather than disguise, and at the same time, the powder pulls moisture out of the local air, and moisture is the medium bacteria depend on to multiply. You take roughly half a cup, you spread it across the base of the empty bin, and you dust a little more over wet scraps as they go in. It does not perfume the space, it changes the chemistry and the dryness of what sits inside. That is the $1 fix, and, on its own, it will carry a normal bin a long way. Here is the part the title alone cannot tell you. Baking soda has a real limit, and an honest method names it. Against the acidic edge and the damp, the powder performs. Against heavy rot already in full bloom, the amines themselves, it can only do so much, because those compounds are basic rather than acidic, and no single cupboard powder erases them once decay is roaring. That honest limit is exactly why the stack exists, and why prevention will always outrank any deodorizer. The second layer is adsorption, and the Japanese tool for it is charcoal. Activated charcoal, and the traditional binchoten, carries an enormous internal surface area riddled with microscopic pores, and odor molecules drifting through the air get trapped and held against that surface. A small open container of it set in the base of the bin or fixed inside the lid pulls a wide range of smells out of circulation, including the amines the baking soda cannot fully reach. That charcoal is also not disposable the way a spray is. Set it in the sun for a few hours every couple of weeks, and the trapped moisture and odor release, the pores open again, and the same piece returns to work, which is the maintaining over replacing instinct made physical. This is where it matters. Charcoal does the broad work, soda handles the acids and the moisture, and the two together cover far more than either manages alone. But the real power move is not a deodorizer at all. It is prevention, and it begins with the worst offenders. Meat, fish, and dairy scraps are where putrescine and cadaverine are born, and those compounds need warmth and time to develop. Take both away. You wrap those specific scraps and keep them in the freezer until collection day, and frozen tissue does not rot, which means the bacteria never get their window and the worst smell is never created in the first place. The bin holds only the rest. The shift sounds minor until the first hot week proves it, because the bin that always turned foul by Wednesday now sits quiet, holding paper, peelings, and dry packaging that has nothing left to ferment into. Beyond that, the kitchen habit of draining and drying earns its place, because wet waste rots far faster than dry waste. So you let tea bags and vegetable trimmings drain, and you tip out standing liquid before it ever reaches the bin. Used coffee grounds and dried green tea leaves, both already leftovers, work as secondary absorbers scattered over the contents, quietly pulling odor as they sit. And the bin itself needs attention, because a film of bacteria clings to the plastic long after the bag is gone. You wipe the empty bin and you let it dry in direct sun, since dryness and ultraviolet light both break down the living layer that reseeds the smell. One real caution belongs here and will not be skipped. When you wipe that bin, never mix bleach with vinegar or with any ammonia-based cleaner, because that combination releases toxic gas, and no clean bin is worth that risk. Plain soap and water, or a single cleaner used alone in an open room, is all the job needs. Now stand back and look at the economics, because they explain why this knowledge faded. A box of baking soda runs about $1 and lasts for weeks. A bag of charcoal costs a few dollars and works for months. Coffee grounds and tea leaves are already sitting in your bin as waste. Against that stands an endless aisle of sprays and plug-in refills and perfumed liners, each one designed to be repurchased on a schedule. Each one masking the same smell that returns on schedule so the next can is bought. No conspiracy drives this. It is simply that a problem solved once with $1 generates no further sales, while a problem covered for a few hours, forever, is a business model. That is who profits from your not knowing. The fix was never expensive, the not knowing was. So the method compresses to something almost embarrassingly small. You freeze the meat and fish scraps until trash day, you keep half a cup of baking soda in the base of the bin, you set a little charcoal in the lid, you drain the wet waste before it goes in, and you wipe and sun-dry the empty bin each week. Total ongoing cost lands near $1, and the smell that owned your kitchen every summer loses the conditions it needs to exist. What changes is not how hard you clean. What changes is when you act. The whole routine costs a few extra seconds at the sink and one short trip to the freezer, and it asks nothing that a busy week cannot absorb. The deepest truth in all of this reaches well past the trash. You never had an odor problem. You had a prevention problem wearing the mask of a cleaning problem. Stop the rot at the source and the smell has nothing left to announce. Prevention is quiet, repair is loud, and the quiet work is almost always the cheaper one. That is the whole philosophy of the Japanese kitchen folded into a single bin. The refusal to waste, the choice to maintain rather than mask, the patience to fix the molecule instead of the air. Lift the lid now and the dread is simply gone, not because you finally found a stronger spray, but because you removed the reason the smell was ever there. If this changed how you think about the smell rising out of your own bin, subscribe, because the next one looks at the other things summer heat breeds around that same trash. The fruit flies that appear from nowhere within a day, where they truly come from, and the overlooked source in your kitchen, quietly making more.